on, which doesn't reach. So economists can work with engineers to help a community develop, or any number of people can work together to help understand these problems, and also how these problems affect different people in different parts of the world by communicating, and then how even people in our own communities can affect, things can be affected differently. So if we can think about what we could do in our own communities, how we could act differently, or work with other people to help change some of our own ideas. So if anyone has any questions for the panel on any of those sort of topics, and topics that were on the board, just a second here.
Can you put up the questions again?
Yeah.
Do you want us all to sort of join in, or is this for the panel?
Well, anyway, all of you think, like, what sort of questions do you think on those sort of lines that, from what you've heard from these four people approaching these sort of problems from different angles?
Can I speak to this one about what the challenges we face? Because I'm often having conversations. My name's Pamela Bitsker. I do films about climate change, and I'm based a lot of the time in India. I'm an activist, and always banging on about the environment and stuff. And I've had a lot of conversations recently with sort of like people about climate change and consumerism and stuff. And I've noticed this thing which I'm now calling sort of like neo-fatalism, which is that intelligent, nice people are starting to say things like, yeah, we talk about climate change, and it's gone on, it's moved on from denial. It was denial a few years ago, like it doesn't happen, it's volcanoes, whatever. Now it's moved on from that to, yeah, it's all going horribly wrong. And there's nothing we can do about it, and humanity is going to go extinct, but humanity actually will probably continue. And it's like there's no emotional attachment to these conversations, which I found absolutely bizarre. And when I've spoken to farmers in India who I filmed about climate change, and relayed to them this sort of like really kind of quite blasé, yeah, we're all going to go extinct, so what sort of thing. They're like, no, I'm saying, what would you say to people in so-called developed countries? They're saying, well, you are educated, you have a lot of power, we must work together to stop this. And they're saying it with a lot of energy. There's not this like, yeah, extinction, so what, And I think this is an absolutely key challenge, because, if you either deny or say, yeah, well, there's nothing we can do, you've basically let yourself off the psychological and emotional hook of taking action. You basically said, there's nothing I can do, so I might as well carry on, either driving around my 4x4, taking a zillion flights backwards and forwards, or doing whatever the sort of the antisocial climate change behaviour is. So I think that's a major one, and to sort of to overcome that, I think that requires a lot of sort of grassroots work, people coming together. The whole solutions are always people coming together, growing their own food, and basically ramping it up really, really fast, and building tons and tons of networks and being really kind of like congruent. And why is it not happening?
And I like that neo-fatalism idea, and something that really bugs me is people who talk about the planet and how the planet's going to be around long after us, it doesn't matter if we die out and then the rest of the biodiverse planet goes with it, because it will still be there as this big lump of rock. But if I had the Earth, I think I'd really care how it existed, and I think I probably quite enjoy living like this sort of biodiverse, flourishing environment, and I think we should re-engage with that idea and care about how the planet is now, and try and keep it like this and improve it, rather than just being like, oh, well, who cares? It was just just like a gas-filled rock at the end of it all. And I think that is linked to the neo-fatalist idea. And we forget that how the planet is now and how it was in the past is really important, and we should protect that.
I think we've got to be very honest at the same. While I agree with those sentiments, I think we need to be very honest and assess how you can actually change from where we are now to where we need to be, because it's very difficult, and I say this time and again. It's very difficult to actually make that step change to a different path. Now, I do quite a lot of work in the clean development mechanism under the Kyoto Protocol, and that's for all its flaws, and it has many of them. It does encourage investment and those sort of partnerships from developing to developed countries and vice versa. Now, I think there are probably better ways of doing it, and one of the ideas about bringing academics from developing countries to developed countries to learn about protection of IP rights and that sort of thing is a very good one. But ultimately, we have to be very honest and say we currently consume this level of energy. We need to get to this consumption of energy. Now, historically, the more energy efficient you make something, the more things that are made with it typically are spread out. So let me give you an example. 10 years ago, I had one television in my house. Today, I have a computer and a television and maybe an iPod or whatever it might be. So although and all those televisions will be bigger than they used to be, no doubt. So while it's true to say that they are more energy efficient than the appliances that I used to have, I'm still consuming more energy. Now, I need to stop doing that, but it's very difficult to say, well, I'm going to stop doing that, and everyone else should stop doing that, because then you start encroaching on people's private rights and that sort of thing, and people's freedom. And while I don't condone that, I think it's a problem that you have to accept and address.
But why do the rights to have 3 televisions have primacy over the rights to have, drinking water, to be able to grow your own crops? I mean, I think this is exactly the problem, and I think, obviously I assume you work for sort of like kind of corporate sort of...
On and off.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is the issue of the sort of like, the neoliberal agenda of continuous growth.
Yeah.
And I sort of wrote back and say, so it's kind of like really sort of like, very sort of current in my mind. I don't understand this sort of like notion that we can, on a finite planet, it is a finite planet, it's the real world, it's finite, it stops. We can have continuous growth. And the whole sort of like neoliberal agenda, which is like basically, grow our way out of trouble. And I just don't understand that. I really don't. I mean, call me thick or something, but I just don't understand it. It's, a child of 6 would understand if you've got a certain amount of space and it stops, then you cannot expand out of that space. A child of 6 would understand it, I understand it, but the big brains of businesses don't understand it, or do they understand it, and do they not give a monkey's about it?
Well, I think the way they would conceptualise it, you need to, again, this is a point which I touched on earlier. You look at things about resources. So if you break up the world into all its constituent resources, absolutely there's a finite amount of oil and there's a finite amount of other resources. But is there a finite amount of energy? Well, yes, but are we there yet? Absolutely not. So if you're just looking at energy, then there's a whole bunch of energy out there which you could, in theory, obtain. And you can then discharge, you'll use that energy as you wish. Like, the amount of energy hitting the Earth is plentiful for what we currently need. It's just that we can't harness it. So I think that to answer your question, while I don't disagree with you, is the brains of big business think, well, actually, we can innovate our way out of trouble. And it's not a great, I'm not saying it's a good argument.
But
They'll focus on the tar sands and not focus on creating R&D and so on.
Well, I mean, yes and no. The tar sands at the moment are a big topic, clearly, and they're a very controversial topic because they, as I'm sure you know, they produce 1 barrel of oil for, depending on who you read, two barrels of oil to actually produce a damn thing. So it's a hugely difficult subject. But you're right. I don't agree that growth is out-and-out growth is the way forward. But again, you have to be very honest and say, how do you change that?
well, you change it by saying